Hey everybody from YouTube. This is the first episode of Tackle Talk, right? I decided to launch a Tackle Talk series because I went out and polled my subscribers and asked them for feedback on what they like about the channel, what they don't like, what they want to see more of. And I got a resounding response on folks want to talk more about or hear talks about tackle selection. So in this first episode, a very common question I got with that was, what is your go-to lure, right, when you go bass fishing? And it's really a great question, but I would really answer that two ways. If I'm out in the out on the field in the lake and fishing, and I'm trying to locate bass, a great lure that I use to locate bass is what's called a chatterbait. Now, a chatterbait, if you're not familiar with this, is almost like the combination of a spinner and a jig combined into one, right? So you can see it's got a little metal blade on the front of it and basically a jig-like body. And there is, I love this lure because I can cover a lot of water with this very quickly, right? And I can cast this with the right, rod and reel combination. I can cast this quite a long distance, and I can cover a lot of water really fast to see where those bass are located. Now, that was before live scope. Now, with live scope, I can locate bass, but I'll still use a chatterbait to try to gauge what kind of presentation are these bass going to react to. Do they want an aggressive presentation? Do they want a softer presentation? Do they want nothing to do with this? And something more along the lines of plastics. So this is a great lure. If you don't have chatterbaits in your tackle box, you must have. You just have to. The thing I'll say about this is there's a lot of variability in terms of how you can work it, right? So you can just basically drag it through the water column, right? Like you would a spinnerbait, right? You can actually also drag this on the bottom. And there's actually a video of me fishing in Hunting Run Reservoir early in the season where I'm slow rolling a chatterbait, right? I'll cover that later, but basically you're just dragging it across the bottom very slowly. That can trigger a strike. Or what you can do is you can basically just bounce this. You can bounce this off the bottom like a jig. So there's a lot of ways to work this thing to try to trigger a bite or locate the bass. So, like I said, a chatterbait, if you don't have them in your tackle box, you absolutely must have these. I've caught a lot of bass on these and a lot of big bass over the years on these things. In fact, you'll see in this video that I'm showing right now, this is at Beaver Dam Reservoir. I just killed it that day with a chatterbait. So if you get a chance, check that video out. Okay, so the second part of the question. So regarding go-to lures. So one is location, right? Locating the fish using a chatterbait. But really, honestly, my go-to lure is plastics. Now, I also will say with plastics, the pros on the tour, if you look at statistically, what is the one type of lure that catches the most fish for professionals? It is plastics, hands down. Now, I'm not saying that plastics is the end all and be all the time, but it's definitely my go-to lure when things can get challenging out there in terms of trying to catch bass. Now, there's a whole bunch of ways. If you're not familiar with plastics in depth, there's a bunch of ways you can rig them. You got Texas style, you got Nico rigs, you got Ned rigs, you got Carolina rigs. You got a whole bunch of options there. You got drop shots. And I'll cover those later, right? And some of the pros and cons associated with each type of plastic rig. So anyways, like I said, chatterbait, man, great lure. You gotta have it in your tackle box. Anyways, that's it. This is it for episode 1. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Okay, this first proof point is at Beaver Dam Reservoir. This was actually a couple of years ago, and I'm working a chatterbait through the water column over a submerged structure. And I caught about, gosh, I must have caught like 5 or 6 bass, and I caught 3 or 4 that were 20 inches or larger. Full videos up on my YouTube channel. Check it out when you get a chance. But you can see this is This one was about 20 inches, but yeah, the chatterbait was awesome. That's the first time I actually used a chatterbait. This was a couple of years ago, and I was really surprised at how well it produced as a lure. And like I said, just a basic presentation, had a shad trailer on it, and I'm just basically running it very quickly through the water column at about probably 4 feet. These things will sink pretty quick, right? And you can get different weights on them, but they have a tendency to sink very, very fast. So you can get it down to whatever target depth you want to fairly quickly, which is great. So, but yeah, I was pretty much sold on it when after I went fishing with this thing. So that was the first time I used it. Great results. Okay, this was literally yesterday. I was at Lunga Reservoir, and a little bit different this time. LiveScope was telling me that the bass were actually feeding on the bottom, right? It looked like they were like pinning bait down on the bottom. So I decided to go ahead and cast this out, let it sink, let it hit the bottom, hits the bottom pretty quickly, and then I skipped it. I would skip this, I'm skipping this this chatterbait down on the bottom fairly quickly. And you can see I hooked up with a nice bass here. Once again, caught about 5 or 6 out at Lunga yesterday. With a chatterbait. This one is a white chatterbait, once again with a shad trailer on it. You can put different kinds of trailers on it and get different colors, but I actually lost this lure yesterday, which was a disappointing one, so I had to replace it. These aren't cheap. Jackhammer makes great chatterbaits, they're really high quality, but they're close to $20 each. But you can see it's a nice bass, and this thing produces. So like I said, if you don't have one in your tackle box, I would definitely go out and get some. So anyways, that's it. There's the proof. Thanks for watching.